If you are feeling that fear and you need to get it out, don't let it sit there because it'll just trap you and keep you from making any moves in your career. And we don't want that. We need you. Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a free resource for women who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Each week, we get real and talk about the things that hold us back and how we can overcome them and keep climbing to the top. And the top is however you define it. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Consider this podcast your secret weapon. You will learn from the best in the business and be able to take immediate action with all the advice that you hear. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, a leadership development coach and consultant. I've worked in sports for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent working for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Cubs. After 15 years of working in the front office, I took a leap of faith and I started my own business. Friends, as a Black woman in sports, I know that the industry can take a toll on your confidence and sometimes leave you feeling defeated. Join me each week so I can support you on your journey. I promise you, each week you will feel stronger and more confident than the week before. So let's get started with this week's episode. It's so easy for fear to slow us down. Sometimes it can just completely derail us. We come to a full stop, can't move forward. Fear it has this way of consuming us. The crazy thing about fear is nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to say, hey, I'm scared. If I take on this role, I'm going to completely mess it up. It's not sexy to talk about fear. And that constant narrative out there doesn't help, right? Everyone talks about you have to be fearless. Go out there and be fearless. Do your thing. Ugh, there is no such thing. It's why I always ask podcast guests if they were afraid when they're talking about a major milestone in their career. And the answer is always yes. They were scared. They were fearful. They were nervous about whatever, insert major milestone here. They're always afraid. So let's not worry about being fearless. No one in this podcast has ever come on and said, I am fearless. Let's talk about how to feel the fear and do it anyway. I have 3 quick tips that I want to share with y'all, and you can quickly put them into action. In these solo episodes, my goal has been to give you digestible recommendations, digestible advice, so you can immediately put it into action. You can take 1, 2, or 3, doesn't matter to me. Take what you want, leave the rest. Take what you want, go put it into action, and make change immediately. So let's talk about 3 easy ways to feel the fear and do it anyway. Number 1, say it out loud. Give that fear life. Put it out into the world. It's our nature to want to tuck it away, like hide it from everybody. I want you to find a trusted person, a trusted human. You can't talk to your dog, although I understand that, but don't talk to your dog or your parrot, or I don't know, does anyone have a parrot anymore? Or your cat, whatever. Find a human, make sure they are trusted, and I want you to talk to them about it. Find a friend. It can be your best friend. It can be a parent, a partner. It can be a mentor, a coach, a therapist. And I want you to talk it out. The trick here is not to try to solve it. And make sure you pick somebody who understands that. And sometimes you have to say, I just need to just talk this out. Can you listen or just ask me questions? Yeah, basically you're asking someone to be your therapist. It's fine. You can return the favor to them. Just you want that person to know, hey, I'm coming to you not to solve this problem, just to talk it out, give it life, get it out of my head. Because fear has this tendency to swirl around in your head. And then it sometimes manifests into something else. You don't even know it's fear. It's sort of sneaky that way. So I want you to find this person and talk to them and talk it out. Sometimes when you have the right person who listens and can help you get curious, somebody who also has empathy, doesn't say, whatever, you're lucky to have a job in sports, suck it up, go. You're lucky to have this incredible job. You should know, yeah, you're scared, but at least you're making money. Okay, that person does not have empathy. So move on to somebody else. Put that person in when you need tough love, you have all different sort of friends, and certain friends and certain colleagues and coaches and mentors give you certain types of, whatever you need. So you can tuck that person away, but you need someone who has empathy and someone who can get curious with you. Now, one of my favorite things to do as a coach is I ask a lot of questions. And I have a client, and I believe she actually did this an on-air coaching episode. She said something that she had fear about, and I asked her a lot of questions. It sounded like she ended up coaching herself. So if you took out my audio and just listened to her go, she talked herself out of being afraid. She just kept talking and was like, all right, it's not that bad. She gave it life and she didn't let it fester, and she was able to talk it out. I've done the same thing with my therapist where I'm like, wow, I can't believe I started the session talking about this. Like I felt completely different just because I ended up talking it out, and I just needed to go. Someone just turn me on and go and ask me some questions to keep me going. So we all have that person that we know who is really good at helping you, could be judgment free in that moment for you and just help you and support you. And you don't have to solve the problem, but you do have to say whatever you're afraid of out loud. Number 2, write it out. One of the most effective strategies for a lot of my clients is writing out what they're feeling. So some people talk it out. Some people do both of these, depending on the mood that they're in at that given moment. They just write it out. It's all swirling in their head, and they just need to get it out, right? So it's almost like you need to do that brain dump. So several ways that I do this with my clients is intention setting. So this helps you get clear at the start of your day. I always say in the morning, do this. It does not have to be long. If you're not a big writer, but you do want to get whatever swirling in your head out of it, just write down 3 intentions. What do you intend to do today? That is it. Just get it out. You're not even talking about the fear, because you just need to talk about what you want to do. Forget fear, let it go. What do you want to do? I think what is even more impactful is when you just freestyle and just write anything that is coming to your brain. It does not need to make sense. It doesn't need to have proper grammar. It just needs to be your thoughts out on paper, just a brain dump, right? Just get everything out on paper. Write it all down. Write exactly what you're feeling. Don't be shy, right? If you need to put it through a shredder afterwards because you're afraid if someone finds this, they might think, well, what's going on with her? Okay, fine. Do that, right? Or tell your best friend where the journals are so she can burn them if anything happens to you. That's super morbid. It reminds me of a podcast episode where Melanie LeGrand, who is a former executive at MLB, she talks about how her best friend knows where to go and what to do with those journals if something is to ever happen to her, because she just writes freely. She just writes what's on her mind, and it helps her. She doesn't do it just for fear. She does it for all the things, right? But if you are feeling that fear and you need to get it out, don't let it sit there, because it'll just trap you and keep you from making any moves in your career. And we don't want that. We need you. Women in sports and women in sports and entertainment industry, we all need you. So we can't let fear slow us down. So write it out, just freestyle. If you've never tried it before, give it a shot. Try it a couple of times. I always have my clients try this 5 days in a row. Let's see how you feel. We'll revisit it and we'll talk about what worked and what didn't, right? And then we can find that strategy for you. So try it, give it a try, write it out. Now, if you need prompts, right? If you're like, I can't just freestyle. What are you talking about? That's just not me. Okay, I got you. I have a workbook. It's called Managing Your Mindset, right? And it has prompts and asks you questions, and you can fill it out and do it that way. So now you feel like you have some structure to your journaling, to getting it out of whatever's swirling in your head and getting it out on paper. So go to jahaanblake.com/mindset, download it. I'll also link to it in the show notes so you can download it there. But it's a great workbook. And I say it's great, and I feel like I could say that. Actually, I know I can say that because I got feedback from clients or people who have downloaded it on their own because they've heard me talk about it on this podcast or on my social channels. And they're like, this actually really helps. They're surprised because just writing it down is helping me get it out of my head and realize, okay, this fear is just that. It's just a fear. It can't stop me. It can't keep me from doing the things that I want to do. I was letting it, but now that I've just sort of gotten it out of my head and given it life, which seems like we want to, naturally do the opposite, hide it, bury it. We want to give it life. And then you start to realize this thing isn't as scary as I thought it is. So I will link in the show notes to that workbook I was talking about. I will also link in the show notes to episode 29, You Deserve to Be in the Room, with former MLB Vice President of social responsibility, Melanie Legrand. That's also a really, really good episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, I highly recommend when you're done with this one, go listen to that one. Number 3, track your progress. You can do this in any format you want to. Doesn't need to be this formal way of doing it. Just make it happen. You want to track your progress over time, because when you do that, you're going to create your own playbook that you can go back and look at. So when you are afraid, when fear is starting to get to you, you can go back and look at the things that you've already done. All the times you conquered fear, all the times you felt the fear and did it anyway. Because what happens is our careers move so quickly, right? Business is business, right? So if you're working for a sports team, like the game is going to go on. If you're working for, let's say MLB, right? And the World Series is going to happen with or without you. Things are moving very, very quickly and you have to keep up. So we tend to forget all of the great things that we've done in the past. So an easy way to remember all of your wins is just to create a simple folder, right? That's one way to track your progress. Create a folder in your inbox. A win happens, and you get an email from, let's say, the president talking about how fabulous and great you are. You're going to drag that into the folder and leave that there. Someone may pass you in the hallway and stop you and tell you what an impact the work you're doing has on them. You're going to go back to your desk, write it down. You can't see me, but I'm sitting here pretending to type. You're going to write it down or type it up, put it in, drag it into that folder. That's an easy way to keep it. Everyone's always on their phones. You don't have to go back to your computer. I forget. It's 2022. So you have a cell phone. You can put it in your notes and drag it into the folder that way. Whatever you want to do, make sure you track your wins. It's so important. There's a podcast episode coming up with Mary Elizabeth, who works for the Atlanta Braves. And I swear I did not pay her. She talks about how she tracks all of her wins and how she just simply pulls it into a folder and she goes back and she looks at it. And it helps her with her confidence, right? So I want you to do something similar, whether it's, if you're like me, I like to write things down. I like to have them on paper. Like this podcast episode and the outline, I literally have in my notebook and I'm looking down at my notebooks. I love to have things on paper. So if you want to do that, write it down on a notebook. Have your wins notebook. I also want you to have a electronic folder, digital folder, or your notebook. I also want you to write things that you would do differently. I know I talk about both of these things a lot, but it's going to help you. These strategies are really effective. So just write down things you would do differently. So now you go and you start a new role and it's scary, or you're leading a meeting and it's scary. Whatever it is, you go and you do it. You're going to do some things right. Write down your wins. You're going to do some things that you wish you did differently. And you're like, ugh, next time I'm going to do it this way. Write those down. Do not just file them away mentally, because you're going to forget. Because remember, business is going to keep moving forward with or without you, and things move quickly. You are going to forget. So write it down, put it in that folder, and you have now created your own playbook. You can go back to it. Mary Elizabeth, although you haven't heard this episode yet, but you will, it's coming up in a couple of weeks. She talks about how she goes and reads it once a year, but she will go back and look at it sometimes when she has a big project coming up. So she'll go back and look at the things that she would do differently. And that helps, right? So that's going to help you. That's going to help you conquer any fear that you have, because you're going to be able to look at it. One, you're going to look at your wins and you'll be like, I've done this. I did it. I won. I have all these wins. Like, I felt the fear and I did it anyway. And then you're also going to have things that, I did this one thing. I loved it, but I'm going to change this one thing so it's going to be even better. So now you've created your own playbook just for you. I always like to have a bonus. So let's talk about, before we go into my bonus, let's talk about the 3 strategies. Say it out loud, write it out, track your progress. 3 easy ways for you to feel the fear and do it anyway. My bonus is, it's simple. It's really simple. The bonus tip is, I need you to keep going. Don't stop. Don't let fear hold you back. There are so many people rooting for you. There are people rooting for you that don't even know you. Women in sports and entertainment, we all need you. We are stronger in numbers and we are making waves out there. And it is so incredible to see all these amazing things that women are doing. But think about it. If you see those women out there, we wouldn't see them if fear stopped them. And I guarantee you that every single woman that you see out there has felt fear in her career at some time or another. But the thing is, she kept going. So that is my bonus tip for you, is to keep going. All right, my friends, I love, love, love that every single week you spend time with me and take time out of your day to listen to this podcast. I love hearing from you. It's the reason why I keep going, because I know that this podcast is impacting you. Just the other day, I was just sitting around, and it was Thursday or Friday, and I was sitting around and I just got a random text message from someone, and she said, "Hi, wanted just to text you and tell you that I appreciate you and your podcast very much." That makes me keep going. So I love hearing from y'all. If this podcast is helpful for you, make sure you reach out. Let me know. You can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Jahaan Blake. Until next week, my friends.